This episode of Playing on a Budget is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 source of games and gaming accessories, and by GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source of Magic the Gathering news and articles. Hi there, this is Kevin with GatheringMagic.com, here with another Playing on a Budget. This week, I am back to Standard, and I decided to brew a Blitz budget deck. This will not include white. Most of the Blitz, the human Blitz, is used white for Champion of the Parish and for Thalia, but this version will not include white as the dual lands are still quite expensive and this is a budget deck. So I think red-green does the job really well. I've just play tested this deck and it did go 4-0 and it had turn 4 kills both times. It was very, very consistent, and I did get off some very, very good draws here with the Burning-Tree Emissaries and the Mayor of Avabruck, but it definitely doesn't have to have those draws to win. So let's just go down the deck here. As I said, this works like Blitz does, and Blitz tries to kill as quickly as possible. And the deck really revolves around the Mayor of Avabruck pumping your humans, as well as the Hamlet Captain pumping your humans as it attacks. So it kind of has like a battle cry type ability to Hamlet Captain, but it does give +1/+1 to all human creatures attacking. So let's just go down the list here. The prices on these are also fairly cheap. The only rare you will find in this deck besides the 3 of Stomping Grounds, and the reason I am only using 3 of Stomping Grounds is that's all that I could include in the budget. We are right at $100. According to CoolStuffInc.com. Please check them out for great card prices on Magic the Gathering. Let's go back to the Mayor of Avabruck. These go for about $4 a piece, and they are very, very good in this deck, as I mentioned before, and they do pump all of your humans. And if they do happen to flip into werewolf form, you get 3/3 wolf tokens. They're 2/2 wolf tokens, but they get +1/+1 from the Aura effect, the +1/+1 to wolves. And if Reckless Waif happens to flip 2 into werewolf form, then it becomes a 4/3 werewolf off of the Mayor of Avabruck. So there is that little interaction. You could go more of a werewolf feel with cards like Wolf-Bitten Captain instead of Experiment 1. Wolf-Bitten Captain is definitely a decent, let's pull one up here, a decent alternative to the Experiment 1. As you can see, you can pump it for +2/+2 for 2 mana, or if it flips into a werewolf, you can actually pump it for +4/+4. So decent card. I think Experiment 1 is a little more powerful in this, so let's just return this back to the card pool. And of course there's some other werewolves you could go, but this isn't a werewolf deck, it's a humans deck, and that is what we're trying to go for. The fastest kill possible on a budget RG list, and this is what I came up with. So let's just keep going down the list here. We'll go with the auras. We'll start off with Rancor. Rancors are about $3.50 a piece. I'm running just 2 of in this deck. That's all I really had room for. I wanted to maximize my creatures, so I had 32 creatures. We are basically going to be hitting creatures every game, and really punishes decks that stumble on land drops or are more mid-range or late game. So the 2 of Rancor for me has worked out perfectly. Then let's go for the removal. I've got a package of 6 removal, 4 Searing Spear, and 2 Pillar Flames. I also have 2 more Pillar Flames in the sideboard that can come against any deck that uses cards like Strangler Geist or cards that you have to exile like Blood Artist. And the Searing Spear are just overall they're really good in this deck. They can be used to do 3 damage to the face or basically kill most early game creatures in this format like Centaur Healers. So that's why they're a 4 main board here. Very versatile card. Ghor-Clan Rampager, again, it can evolve your Experiment 1, but is basically used in here for the Blood Rush. +4/+4 and Trample is a very powerful effect, but if you have to get a creature out, you can throw him out for a 4/4. He's not too hard to cast in this deck. We are only at 20 lands, but late game, if you are getting a little bit flooded and don't have any targets, a 4/4 for 4 is definitely a very value creature. Then we have the Lightning Maulers. Lightning Maulers work amazing in this deck as they have so much synergy with Burning-Tree Emissary. You can cast a Burning-Tree Emissary into a Lightning Mauler and swing for 4 that turn, which is very, very powerful on turn 2. We already talked about the Hamlet Captains, why they're in here. I think Gore-House Chainwalker is one of the better humans. It's a 3/2. You could use the Firefist Striker. You could use more copies of the Firefist Striker, or you could even go for other... I think there's some other green humans. There's another werewolf that's a 2/2 that flips into a 3/3 Intimidate, but I think that the Gore-House Chainwalker is the better human. The reason why I'm including this over Ash Zealot is that Burning-Tree Emissary can work with Gore-House Chainwalker, but cannot suffice the double red for Ash Zealot. So you could definitely, if you wanted to go Ash Zealots, you could go them instead of the Gore-House Chainwalker. I like the Firefist Strikers in here as a 2 of. I don't want to see more than one Firefist Striker. Sometimes they're okay to have in multiple, as they each can trigger, and up to 2 creatures, 3 creatures, 4 creatures couldn't block. But I think 2 of is just fine. In most scenarios, I'd rather have a Gore-House Chainwalker. We have ways to get around damage in this deck with Rancor and Ghor-Clan Rampager. But it's one of those that's nice to have. It's nice to have an out against any sort of defensive strategy, as you can make them not block. And in my test games, these 2 Firefist Strikers actually did make their money's worth for sure. Already talked about Burning-Tree Emissary. It works very well also on turn 2 if you need to cast both a Reckless Waif and Experiment one, or say like a Pillar Flame and a Rancor. Best card in your deck by far, Burning-Tree Emissary. These ones run about, I believe they were $3 a piece right now. A very, very popular card. Everything else that I've talked about besides the Mayor of Avabruck are very cheap. If I don't name a price, then you can usually get them for about $25 to $1. Reckless Waifs are another one of those very affordable cards. I really like Reckless Waif. You could go for the Vampire, the Stormkirk Noble, but it is not a human. And this is a human unless it flips. And if it does flip on turn 1, it becomes a 3/2. Very powerful card. It flips all the time in this format. There are a lot of lands like the Rootbound Crag that they'll play first turn, they'll come and play tapped, or even Guild Gates, or just not have a play on first turn, and you'll pop a first turn Reckless Waif and it'll flip into a 3/2. Experiment 1's really good because it gets evolved by most things in this deck. At least becomes a 2/2. Very easy to get up to a 3/3 with either the Anthem from the Mayor of Avabruck or a Gore-House Chainwalker. Or if you do need to evolve it, you can always Ghor-Clan Rampager. That's another reason why I like the Chainwalker in here, is it does evolve the Experiment 1. So you could play Experiment 1 first turn, into Burning-Tree Emissary second turn, into Gore-House Chainwalker, and you'll have a 3/3 Experiment 1. So very, very, very good little synergy there. So we're going to go over to the mana base, play a little more mountains than forests. As you can see, we have a lot more red mana here than we have green mana. And I am playing a 4 of Rootbound Crag and a 3 of Stomping Ground. Of course, you'd want to go up in the Stomping Grounds if you can afford that, but since this is a $100 budget, we had to cut 1 Stomping Ground to put us underneath that budget. Another card that you could put in this deck would be Flinthoof Boar, but again, it's not a human, but it has great synergy with the Burning-Tree Emissary. Most Blitz decks do run this, as it becomes with a Stomping Ground or a Mountain, you get a 3/3 for 2 mana that does have the option of being hasted. So great card. I did include in this deck because I wanted to go more of a human feel, and I guess the alternative that would be either a Chainwalker or a Captain, and I guess the Chainwalker is almost as good as a 3/2. Does not have the option of haste though. So I'm not including the Flinthoof Boars. You're more than welcome to throw it in. It does do quite well in this deck. So let's go over the sideboard. Skullcrack is in here against Sphinx's Revelation, Thragtusk. Tormod's Crypt is in here against any sort of Reanimator strategy. I'm only including a 2 of. I don't want to side too much against the Reanimator. Plus we have the Mark of Mutinies, which are very powerful against Reanimator and very powerful against Thragtusk. I like the Mark of Mutinies because it's an extra damage. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. And also works really good with Undying creatures. Say you can Mark a Mutiny their Strangleroot Geist, and they will not... It's basically like taking a life away from the Strangleroot Geist. That's why I love the Mark of Mutiny. That scenario will actually play out a lot of times. And like I said, that 1 damage sometimes is the difference between winning and losing. I also like it over Traitor's Blood because it is a little easier on the mana, as it is 2 colorless and 1 red, whereas Traitor's Blood is 2 red and 1 colorless. You also have Active Treason, but Active Treason does not put a +1/+1 counter. It just gains controls of it. So there's your options for the gain control of a creature. I'd stick with one of those 3. Then we have the Volcanic Strengths. These are very good against any deck that uses a mountain, which is the most popular land type in the format right now. You'll see mountains more than any other land type. So I've got 4 of them in the sideboard. Of course, they can either substitute a Rancor or you can put them in place of something else. And I've got 2 more, like I said, Pillar of Flames in the sideboard against any other deck that's trying to have an early game strategies. You can clear a blocker and get in there for the maximum damage. So anyway, that's the theory of this deck. We will go on now and play in a 4-man standard. I hope you enjoy this deck. It's a very, very powerful budget deck. This is Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.